Pete Moore, welcome to Gun Mart TV. What we have here is something we've seen before, but this is slightly different. It's a Chiappa Rhino 120 DS. In itself a very unusual long barrel revolver. Simple fact is that the barrel is at the 6 o'clock section of the frame rather than at 12 o'clock. The idea is that you get less turning movement on recoil and the gun's easy to shoot. Also, in terms of stresses generated by firing, there's a lot less of them. Let's just say, we've seen this before. It's an unusual and very different LBR. But there's also a little bit of history to this. There used to be a company called Shooting Developments Limited. But in 1991, they decided to have a part of the company that did nothing but make custom revolvers for competition. And they had an agreement with Smith & Wesson. A guy called Richard Wilson, he was the guy that headed up. And I didn't know this, but he also worked with Chiappa on the Rhino as such, and he had a lot of input into the gun. And at a later stage, he actually made a version which he called the Match-Master LBR. Basically, it was the same Rhino gun, but he changed it a little bit with various things. And he reckons it's probably the best of the modern LBRs. And I have to say, though I don't like this sort of gun at all, and I've got to say, if I was going to go down this route, then the Chiappa Rhino would be my choice. But what makes this somewhat different and special is the fact that this has been Wilson tuned on the trigger. Now, when I left the army, I used to work for the Met Police D11, the tactical unit, who also did the firearms training for the Met. And back then, everybody had revolvers, simple as that. Smith & Wesson Model 10, Model 36, and that's what they carried. And it's a very simplistic mechanism. However, it's to get all your moving parts, your cylinder must rotate, and it's got to stop in the right position and stay there. The trigger's got to be good. And the real trick, apart from the timing, is the trigger. Because most of these guns, they're what we call double action revolver, as in trigger cocking. And they can also be single action, as in hammer cocking, like that. Single action is obviously more accurate because you are just cocking and setting the hammer and then pulling the trigger. Double action, everything's moving at the same time. And for a successful double action revolver, certainly for competition work, the trigger must be good and the whole mechanism must be sweet so that everything rotates at the same time and there's not too much effort. That's the thing. If you have heavy trigger pulls and double action, your gun waves everywhere. Whereas this is just had the trigger done. And the difference between the two models I tested before and this is phenomenal. You can roll off the shots. So this one is from importers Ray Trade Limited. And it's in a rather interesting sort of, what do you call it, goldy colour. It's just a coating over the aluminium. But it's a little bit too fancy for me, but I can see the appeal to certain people. It's got the standard Chiappa wood grip on here, which is, again, like a saw handle, very comfortable. Form rifle stocks who make a custom laminate pistol grip, especially for the Chiappa Rhino. And it's fuller. It's a better pistol grip all round if you're talking about shooting competition and shooting as well as you can. As always, we have the problem of the gun being what's known as a large firearm, as in the barrel has to be a minimum of 12 inches long and the whole gun has to be the minimum of 24 inches long to make it a large firearm. How they do this, obviously the barrel comes out the front and everybody seems to put a dummy body on there to make it look better. I don't know. That's what really puts me off these, is this long barrel and the dummy body, but that's purely cosmetic. Now at the back is this rod, which colloquially is known as a coat hanger, and it's permanently affixed to the gun's frame. The Chiappa differs a little bit from the standard double action revolver in a number of ways, as I said before. First of all, that's the cylinder latch there. Pull it back, flip it out. That red thing's just a firing pin protector. You can see the Wilson logo there, and if you notice well that to keep, this is what they call the crane, this bit here that supports the cylinder. There's a little detent in there, there's a little sprung ball bearing, and when you shut it, it locks at the back, but it also locks at the front. so you get much better support on the cylinder when it comes to rotating and locking. Comes with adjustable iron sights as standard with the Day-Glow inserts. I must say I found both of the controls a little bit stiff to use, and Chiappa supply a small screwdriver or flat screwdriver, which is probably not really man enough for the job. Front sight is fixed, pinned in, red Day-Glow insert. The frame skeletonized here with Picatinny type slots, top and bottom, so you can put a red dot on there, or even weights if you wanted to, because this is more of a competition gun. Most unusual is this item here. This is technically the hammer, though it's not the hammer. What it is, it's a cocking device. So if you want to shoot single action, you pull it back like so, it flips forward again, and the mechanism is set internally. If you notice, look here, that red button pops up, which indicates that the gun is ready to shoot. In double action mode, as you cycle the gun, if you watch again, comes up and goes down, but in no time does this dummy hammer move. So to open it up, flip it, push it out, and that's it, pretty much done. The whole point of custom tuning is that your shot release is smoother on a revolver, and if it's double action, then the whole thing just rolls through with less disturbance to the shooter. You can polish sears, you can change components. The one thing you are fighting against is the hammer spring, because the hammer spring is designed to knock the hammer forward and ignite pretty much any round, which means potentially hard trigger pull. So if you wind down the hammer spring a bit, which you can do, or put a lighter spring in, then it means your double action is smoother and lighter. However, there is a possibility that the hammer strike is not powerful enough, and I found with this gun in both single and double action that with a number of factory loads I tried, it was like intermittently light striking. And in the end I got some 38 Special Gecko full metal jacket flat nose ammunition, which is pretty good. It's the sort of fodder you would be feeding a gun like this. You don't need a 357 for punching paper. 38 is better, less recoil, and probably potentially more accurate. Most people that would fork out the extra money for one of these would reload. So what they'd do, they'd probably go and find small pistol match primers, maybe a little bit softer, maybe a little more consistent. So it's not a problem, it's the way it is. If you just go out and buy some Bakshi 357, you could get intermittent strikes with this. I'm not saying you could do, this certainly did, but I put some through this and also found some Remington small pistol primers and loaded up some sort of lighter loads, and that seems to do the trick. So it's not an issue, it's just the nature of beast. Well, there's no doubt that the Wilson trigger job, compared to the guns I've shot in the past, does make a difference in terms of just rolling your shots off nicely. I've already mentioned the fact that you need to make sure your ammunition is going to ignite every time, which is just a matter of reloading for it or finding something like those Gecko 38 Special rounds. Well, given what it is, it's a pretty handy little pistol. And the coat hanger, though obligatory, doesn't get in the way that much, though I just hate this long barrel, but there's nothing you can do about it. The action potential is there, but 25 yards single action I was getting about 4 or 5 inch groups. I haven't shot a pistol in a long time, so I'm really out of my depth again with that. But that wasn't too bad from my point of view as a practical shooter. That would be pretty much the A zone of a target. I actually did find a little bit more shooting with it, and I found that in double action mode my groups ever so slightly shrunk. I think perhaps because I've always shot revolvers all my life double action pretty much, very little slow fire for me. I don't know, I just felt right rolling off, staying on aim, not having to manually cock the hammer. I don't know, but it just worked for me. However, this is a step forward. You're in the right hands, which is certainly not mine anymore. It will give you an advantage over a standard gun. Okay, so Pete Moore signing off. Comment if you liked it, tell your friends, and give me a shout if you need anything or want to speak about anything. It's pmore.shootingsports@gmail.com, and I'll see you later.